What would it take for Clemson and Florida State to go to the Big 12? And the only two things that I can think about are uneven revenue distribution, which is what has happened in the ACC here as of late. It's all merit-based and whatnot. That the Big 12 would essentially have to do a repeat of Texas and their channel and have uneven revenue share. They don't have the money. They don't have a television deal that's any better than the ACC. There's no amount of money that you can shift towards Clemson and Florida State that would make them catch up to whoever they're trying to compete with in the SEC and the Big Ten. It's just non-existent. But then I keep forgetting, and I go back to Brett Yormark going, yeah, private equity, hell yeah, baby, let's go. All-state 12, yeah, let's go. And I'm thinking to myself, if this was a conference that was willing to pay Colorado a signing bonus to join the conference, a little extra something to get you out of that fee, well, then what's to stop Brett Yormark, who clearly is a disruptor, from trying to work something out with private equity that says, look, you come on down here, you get funded by this private equity, you'll be put more in line with everybody else while playing in our conference. You better our conference, we can better our TV deal, and we go from there. It's the only way it works out, with the exception of one thing, but I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Yeah, if the Big 12, which is at 16 right now, goes to 24,
yeah,
and they added Clemson, Florida State, NC State, Louisville, Virginia Tech, and however many others to get to 24.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you rather be in the Big 12 in the Irate Giglio division of the Big 12? Because then you'd have Louisville, West Virginia, State, Virginia Tech.
But they don't care about those teams. They care about what they're getting paid. That's all they care about.
Florida State and Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They don't care about their partners. They care about the money. I mean, it's pretty naked at this point.
But if Florida State's going private equity, don't they have their own supply, their own brick?
I'm glad you brought that up. So I started jotting down, for the sake of this conversation, let's focus on Florida State, because they clearly want out one way or the other.
They're ready.
They're done. They're done with the ACC. It doesn't matter how long it's going to take for them to get out of the ACC. They want out. All right, so let's go through the options. The SEC.
Does the SEC want them?
I don't think they do.
I don't think any of the schools do.
No.
But
they don't need Florida State. They don't.
No, they're already in the state.
The leverage that the SEC has currently with their television partner isn't about ESPN. It's not about adding more teams. It's not about taking teams out of the ACC.
Texas and Oklahoma.
They're good. They're set with Texas and Oklahoma. They don't need to add a team from a market they already are in, number one.
Carolina. Don't you think Carolina would help them?
Carolina might.
The SEC.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I do think that the leverage the SEC currently has, the last thing that they have is the 9th conference game. That's it. That's the thing that ESPN wanted. Greg Sankey smartly said, well, are you going to give us more money for that 9th game? And they said, no, we just want a 9th conference game. They're like, no. That's the only thing they have.
No, they have one other thing, though.
That is
their discounted rate. Because no one has joined the SEC at a discounted rate yet.
Yeah, not a Big Ten situation where they're bringing in teams at a discounted
Oregon
rate.
and Washington at a discounted rate.
Right. Is Florida State going to come in so desperately with a discounted rate?
Again, if you have your own brick.
Maybe.
Right?
Big Ten doesn't want Florida State.
I don't get that feeling.
I don't get that feeling. I mean, there's the fit aspect of this, and I'm not even talking about the AAU thing. I'm just talking about fit. I'm not quite sure that going all the way down to Tallahassee is part of the Big Ten fit at this point.
I mean, they added Rutgers. You're giving them more dignity than they have.
No. When I talk about fit, I'm talking about big-ass markets. They want their tent poles, okay? They obviously have their Chicago. They have New York. They have LA now. That's what matters to them. Ultimately, that's what matters to them. Everything else was, as you said, the discounted rate to get Washington, Oregon, etc. Brought up the Big 12.
I'm taking an Oregon ticket to win the Big Ten, by the way.
What is the point of the Big 12 if you're Florida State? It's a lateral move at best. You're going up against teams that are not.
Well, I'm just away from you.
I mean,
so
maybe
nanny poo poo.
So this gets to the private equity aspect of it.
Yeah.
If you're Florida State and the Big 12 is maybe trying to entice you, again, this is all hypothetically speaking here. Just this is what we do in July when we talk about conference realignment. If you're the Big 12 and you're going to throw private equity money at Florida State to join your conference, you are already dealing with a school that has openly talked about and has a guy on the Drew Weatherford Capital. They've already got a deal that they're willing to, they're going around to various schools and talking about private investment and everything else. What's to stop Florida State from just going independent? Just securing the private equity bag.
Going UConn?
Going Notre Dame.
I think.
Which is not, I mean, they're independent. They have their football deal with the ACC.
I was going to say, they get those 5 games.
But Brett Yormark is nuts enough that he would do an arrangement with Florida State like the ACC has with Notre Dame.
Okay. Because I think UConn is able to be independent in football because people want to play them because they can beat them. I'm not sure who wants to play Florida State. Say whatever you want for them.
Nobody wants to play
they're
them.
probably going to beat you.
No, I'm with you on that. Nobody wants to play Florida
Yeah.
State. I don't know if they're this smart or they're thinking that far ahead. They clearly seem to have a plan, but I also know this about college athletics, and you know this about college athletics. There's no real plan.
Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the
Nobody's
mouth.
got a plan. We can all look at each other in the eye and then all of a sudden just do our own things. But if Florida State were going to play this smart, they would do all the things I described, go quasi-independent like Notre Dame, and then wait out the next 10 years for whatever iteration of college football we're clearly headed to.
The Super League.
Yes.
Yeah.
The ACC is going to have their kickoff. Jim Phillips is going to get asked a bunch of questions about where things are with this lawsuit with Clemson and Florida State. Looks like it's something that'll be going back and forth for a while now. But there was, I guess, a pivotal decision between Clemson and the ACC that went the ACC's way this week. So where do things stand on that? What happened?
Well, what happened yesterday, it was actually yesterday that happened, was the same thing that happened with Florida State, where Clemson had brought a series of motions to dismiss the case here in North Carolina. There was no chance that that was going to be successful because that would have required Judge Bledsoe essentially reversing himself on the decision that he made with Florida State. And in both cases, he's basically has decided that these institutions, because they have participated commercially in North Carolina, they have waived their immunity and are subject to the jurisdiction of North Carolina courts. He decided that in the Florida State case, and he also just yesterday decided that in the Clemson case. Clemson this morning appealed Judge Bledsoe's order to the North Carolina Supreme Court. So previously, Florida State had done so, and so now the jurisdiction is no longer with the Superior Court down in Mecklenburg County, and is instead here in Raleigh with the North Carolina Supreme. So I would expect him to get a number of questions about the where we are in the lawsuit, what he thinks about it. I think he most recently publicly said that the ACC has every intention of fighting these lawsuits very hard, and they should. They have an incredibly strong legal position. And I'm not sure why in the world the ACC would want to fold with a royal flush, as I've said a number of times. Now, what's going on down in Florida is a whole separate kettle of fish. That's a situation where I've been highly critical of the proceedings down there. I mean, you had pretty much rudimentary motions practice and motions that you would expect in high stakes litigation, which is a motion to stay and then also a motion to dismiss on jurisdictional grounds. I thought both of those questions were layups. I think most judges would have resolved those on the papers, that is, without a hearing, and would have taken them 20 to 30 minutes to do so. I sat through 3 days and 19 hours worth of hearings on that matter down in Tallahassee, even though that they were layups. And the court was actually going to hold a 4th day, but the ACC was like, my man, chill. We don't want to have that 4th day of hearings. Just go ahead and decide.
Right.
And so that's ultimately what happened down in Tallahassee. The ACC has appealed part of that, which was the motion to stay on that. And I don't know when that's actually going to be heard in Florida, at the appellate court system in Florida, but I suspect it will be pretty quickly.
So my next question, you say, or the ACC has given you every indication to believe they're fighting all these things, countersuits, XYZ. I know initially, however many weeks ago this was, or a month or so, I mean, all this stuff's kind of, admittedly, it all kind of runs together when I look back on it. But I'm pretty sure I forgot which proceeding it was where the lawyer said, hey, you all need to settle this thing. Okay.
Was the judge.
Was the judge. Right?
Yeah.
I don't remember which proceeding it was, just that the judge went, y'all got it. I see where y'all are coming from, but this is something that you're supposed to settle. That's what's going to happen here. But the ACC does not look like they're in any way, shape, or form willing to settle at this point. I mean, I'm sure John Swofford in Maryland was kind of in the same boat. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how publicly it was, but the ACC looks very adamant about, no, the grant of rights is the grant of rights. We are not settling this situation.
I mean, it's an intellectual property license. I mean, you guys you're journalists, radio personalities, local celebrities, I should say. I mean, good Lord, I need your autographs in addition to being on your show. It's an intellectual property license. It's in black and white. I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, it's a copyright license. And simply when you convey that to an entity like the ACC, you can't just rescind it because of a change in market conditions. That's essentially what Florida State is arguing. I mean, I've said this many of times, is that when you sign a contract, and then when you take hundreds of millions of dollars under that contract, there are equitable defenses that will play into the ACC's favor that should bar Florida State's claim. And then there's not a recognized contract defense like fraud, misrepresentation, unconscionability, even though Florida State is ridiculously arguing that, like it's somehow unfair. I mean, it's just been a change in market conditions. I mean, the value of live sports has gone through the roof. And so because the ACC was stuck into such a long-term deal, it has not been able to renegotiate that deal, or because nobody's seen the deal.
That was a feature at the time, but there's also a way to do that, but nobody wants to play that game. But that's here nor there.
Every time you say that, though, David, it hits me in the back of the head where you're like, they took the money.
Yeah.
If it was such a bad deal, then why did you take the money?
And they wouldn't have re-upped.
And legally, thank God, there's still something legally that matters. Legally.
No, the only way, David, the only way for Florida State to do this with the copyright and the transfer and everything else is to hope there's a conference on LimeWire that they're downloading. Although in Florida State's case, what would happen is they get LimeWire. They're like, see, it's the SEC. They download the SEC file, but it ends up being a virus that gets you into the Big 12. We wouldn't want that to happen.
I don't think that is even happening. I mean, look, I heard y'all's discussion earlier about the Big 12 possibly courting Florida State and Clemson. They would have massive tortious interference claims on their hands or on its hands. So, maybe it's a lot of, fluff at this stage. I doubt it. I doubt that the Big 12 wants to attract the attention of independent lawsuits from ESPN or Wake Forest.
Yeah, but it doesn't work that way.
Wake would definitely sue the shit out of some people.
Yeah, but
we should sue the shit out of some people. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, even if Carolina left, I mean, what would Duke do? I'm sure Duke's Office of Counsel is not going to sit back and just